From Jerusalem, where a day of pain, of rage and of tearful embraces is ending, as Israelis have been remembering what a year ago was the unthinkable. That was the massacre of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of 250 hostages by Hamas terrorists from Gaza. There was no let-up in the fighting that has torn the Middle East apart on this day of contemplation, neither from Israel nor Hamas and Hezbollah. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war would not end until Israel's goals are met. No one here needed any reminder of what happened 365 days ago. It was Israel's deadliest day since it was founded 3/4 of a century ago. And in Tel Aviv, in what's become known as Hostage Square, loved ones of the 97 still missing, all too aware of those cruelly taken. In Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, overnight bombing by Israel was the biggest of the past week, and it has started up again this evening. We have correspondents across the region to assess how the anniversary has been marked. First, this report from John Irvine on a day of loss called to mind.
It was always going to be painful, marking the anniversary of the bloody day on which everything changed for the worse. The biggest loss of life was at the Nova Music Festival, the site of which is now a memorial to the 364 young party-goers murdered 1 year ago. The high death toll ensured a large turnout here, as many relatives and friends of the dead chose to be together to share the heartache on this awful anniversary.
We didn't anticipate that it's going to be 1 year. We thought it's going to be 1 week. We're going to bring all the hostages back, and that's it. But the war is continuing.
In nearby kibbutz near Oz, the cruel scars are still raw and untouched. They think that clearing up any of it, including the children's toys, would be disrespectful. Among the kibbutzniks who returned here just for today's ceremony was Yafa Adar, one of the bravest of the victims. As she was taken hostage, her demeanor was one of stoicism and defiance, as it was again today. Mrs. Adar is 86 years old and was released back in November. But she is an exception, and at times the organizers struggled with emotion as they listed those they have lost.
David Said Moshe, Eliyahu Churchill Margalit.
This kibbutz is largely deserted, and largely as it was after the murderous rampage of 12 months ago. It's been preserved as a reminder and as a warning. Nir Oz lost 117 people that day, either murdered or kidnapped. That's more than a quarter of its population. It wasn't just the deadliest day for Jewish people since the Holocaust, it was reminiscent of it. People were hunted down, many shot at point-blank range. There were burnings and rapes and horrific final moments as the pursued tried but failed to find refuge. Giddy and bloodthirsty, the terrorists recorded their monstrous rampage on body cams. 800 of the 1,200 they killed were civilians. They took another 250 hostage. Predictably, Israeli retribution was swift and devastating. The Hamas-run health ministry puts the death toll at more than 41,500, the majority civilians. Today, the Israeli cabinet observed a minute's silence but stayed away from the ceremonies in the south, where Mr. Netanyahu is unpopular because of the remaining hostages. Ultimately, this was the people's day, not the politicians. It's rare to see Israel's president, the man in the glasses, as just another face in the crowd. A couple of miles away in Gaza, the Israelis were warning people to flee neighborhoods they've already conquered but are going to fight for again. The war looks like it's on a loop, and today isn't just the anniversary of the beginning, it's the first day of its second year. John Irvine, News at 10, Southern Israel.
Well, if Hamas massacre a year ago was unprecedented, so too has been Israel's response. Israel is now fighting a war on several fronts. It kept up its air and ground offensive today in its fight with Hamas in Gaza. It recently stepped up its targeting of Hezbollah, who back Hamas in Lebanon, with heavy airstrikes on Beirut and the south, and sending in a new wave of troops in its ground invasion. Israel has also launched attacks on the Houthis in Yemen. And on top of all that, last week, Iran launched a huge missile attack on Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities. Well, as tensions grow over how Israel will respond to Iran's latest attack, its fight against Hezbollah continues across Lebanon. With the latest, Emma and John are in Beirut. John, we'll speak to you first. You've just spent the day in the south, close to the front line, an extremely dangerous place. What did you witness?
Well, Julie, a year ago I was on the Israel-Gaza border, and back then, indeed for a long time afterwards, it was thought that a war on this front was best avoided rather than being enthusiastically embraced as it is now by Israel. What has changed is their calculation that this is a war that they can win, perhaps a one-off opportunity to deal a severe blow to Hezbollah. So today, in the space of just an hour, they dropped 120 bombs on what they said were terrorist targets. 3, Julie, landed perilously close to the hotel we were staying in. Tonight, they have closed off the beach, which suggests there is a maritime operation about to get underway, and they have thrown in an extra division of troops into the land battle. The question is, at what cost? 2,000 Lebanese have died, almost all of them during the course of the airstrikes over the past week. And yet Hezbollah rockets are still flying and Hezbollah is still defiant. Today, they said that Israel was a cancer that needs to be eliminated. No one here, Julie, that I speak to knows how and when this will end. Everybody I speak to fears that this could be a second Gaza.
John, thank you for that. Let's speak then to Emma, who's been witnessing what has happened in Beirut specifically today, and it has only deepened the danger there tonight. Emma, what's the latest from there?
Well, there has been a wave of strikes through the course of the day, and then this evening we've seen a real step up in the intensity. There have been a number of strikes on targets that the Israelis say are Hezbollah weapons depots, and also strikes on buildings that they say can have command centres in them. Now, it is adding to the sense of alarm here, because if you heard from John, the south is getting the real high-level hits, but here in Beirut there is an increasing number of them. And if you think back to 2001, that was when America chose to invade Afghanistan after 9/11. There's real echoes of that here, because President Biden warned a year ago Prime Minister Netanyahu not to have an emotional response to what had gone on October the 7th, and also to have an end game. It seems that neither of those messages have been heeded, and the real worry here in Lebanon now is that Prime Minister Netanyahu says he's going to continue with his war goals, but nobody is completely clear what they are, and nobody is completely clear what the end game is in terms of ending any kind of military escalation.
OK, Emma, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, at the heart of memories of a year ago has been the attack on the Nova Music Festival, when evil overwhelmed joy. We're going to tell the story of what happened through the experiences of 2 young women who were there, Moran Yanai and Maya Puda. Moran was kidnapped but survived. Maya did not.
Very good Israelis, you know, 7 rockets in the sky. It's going to end soon. It's going to be over and everything will be the same, but it doesn't stop.
It's dawn, a year ago to the day, and Moran is at an open-air music festival in southern Israel. 25-year-old Maya is also here, though her family don't yet know it.
At 6:30 I was awake. The television was on and I saw sirens and missiles.
Aghast at the pictures, she tries to ring Maya. For Moran, it's already too late.
They broke the fences, and we know that there is a herd of terrorists coming towards us as well. And when they came, it was no longer no talking, very much aggressive, very much violent. And that's it. That's a point that you have a lot of small talks with the guy upstairs because it doesn't seem real, you know. Being dragged by 13 Hamas terrorists, I'm just one.
Not far away, Maya is packed into a tiny concrete shelter with around 40 others. It's now just after 8 in the morning.
She told us that she's in a shelter and that they're fine. But she didn't tell us that they could hear terrorists. She didn't want to make us even more scared or worried. She was calm. And she was quiet and she wasn't panicking. And I think she knew.
By now, hostages are beginning to arrive in Gaza. Moran is among them.
Everyone, the entire city, from the smallest child to the oldest one, celebrating evil.
But as for Maya, no one knows if she's on the run, in the militants' hands, or worse. A day passes, then another, then another.
We sat for 4 days and looked at every footage that the Hamas put online. And so we saw body parts and we knew that Maya had a tattoo on her leg. So if we saw a leg, we looked if it was her tattoo. On Wednesday evening, we received the horrible news that no mom or dad wants to hear, and that Maya was murdered and identified by DNA.
While 200 people gather in the north for Maya's funeral, in Gaza, Moran is often alone with her captors.
Somebody is staring at you 24/7, and you don't know why. You are a thing, you are a matter in their hands. They choose what to do with you. You just hope that today is not going to be your day.
By now, the bombing of Gaza is relentless.
I saw death almost every single day. Second day, the building next to us is crashing down. You don't know when the next bomb is going to hit.
Finally, after 54 days, she's freed.
Many people talk about that moment that they saw us smiling, thinking maybe that everything was okay. First of all, I will smile. But the second thing is that I won. I won.
But she's still fighting every day for the hostages who remain in captivity, 18 of them taken like her from the festival.
I have to believe that they have the power that I had inside. I have to believe that they will make it back home.
She's smiling at you and you can see her beauty.
But Maya, who could light up a room in seconds, will never come home. Her mum is determined to remember the film student who would send a silly voice note just to brighten her day.
This is Maya's laughing.
Pure joy ringing out after a year of unimaginable horror. Rachel Younger, News at 10, Southern Israel.
Well, we saw in Rachel's report an image of the hostages who have not come home. Nearly 100 are still missing, but a third of those are thought to have been killed. All of them have been remembered today across the country. Well, Rachel is in Ashkelon in southern Israel, near to the Gaza border tonight. And Rachel, what is the feeling there tonight?
Julie, tonight Israel is in pain and Gaza is in pieces after an unthinkable 365 days of this war in both places. Often it still feels like the day after. Now, Israel won't let us into Gaza, which lies just a few miles behind us here. But the grief we have witnessed in southern Israel has been palpable. Just to give you an idea of how closely intertwined the mourning and the fighting has been over the past 24 hours, there have been a number of sirens in the south warning of rockets being fired over from Gaza. And when we travelled even closer to the border, to the Nova Music Festival Memorial yesterday, the silence there was punctuated by the sound of Israeli mortars being fired back into Gaza, where there are no sirens and no shelters. Now, a new poll out today by the Institute of Democracy has found that 3/4 of Israelis want their hostages back more than they want Hamas to be crushed. And yet it goes on. While in the short term, it is arguable that the devastation being wrought on Gaza and now in Lebanon may be making Israelis safer, it is difficult to see how in the longer term, Julie, the anger and the desperation being caused will not threaten the longer peace that Israel so desperately needs to mourn and to heal.
Rachel, thank you. As Rachel was saying, the war being fought in Gaza has been utterly devastating. More than 41,000 Palestinians have been killed, and the continued Israeli assault has dramatically altered the landscape of the region itself. This is Al-Shifa Hospital before the war began. It was the biggest in Gaza, and this is it now, after being reduced to rubble after a series of airstrikes. The Israeli military said it was targeting a Hamas command centre beneath the hospital. And this is the Islamic University of Gaza. Before October 7, 17,000 students attended. Now it's almost completely destroyed by bombings. Well, behind those scenes of destruction are endless accounts of individual loss and suffering. Tonight we hear just two of them, from a medical student and a young mother. As international journalists are banned from Gaza by Israel, here are their stories in their own words.
I'm Azzuddin Lulu, a fifth-year medical student currently residing in Gaza. I've been volunteering at Al-Shifa Hospital since October 2023.
My name is Tujan Firwana. I'm 21 years. I am from Khan Younis. When I know about my pregnancy in the war, I was shocked. In my first baby delivery, it was everything easy and available to find it.
Before war, I had great dreams and passion of life.
I would describe my life before war as a vibrant tapestry of hope and happy dreams, surrounded by loving relatives and friends. I used to go to the beach with my family. I have been known in my community as the smile maker, as I was surprising people with their drawings. And right now, finding a reason to smile has been a huge challenge for me. I witnessed the besiegement of the hospital. For 1 whole week, there was no electricity, telecommunication or Wi-Fi. So I started making videos to let the world what was going on inside the hospital. بحكي معكم الآن من داخل مستشفى شفاء المحاصرة. Snipers were targeting people in the halls of the hospital. We were forced to watch people bleed out to death before our eyes. But the heaviest and most painful thing for me was yet to come. They told me that I lost 20 beloved family members. My father, my brother, my uncles, my grandmother, my nephews, and my pregnant sister-in-law. they had taken from me what I love most in life, my family.
The war destroyed all my dreams. It destroyed my sweet home. I will get my second baby at Nasser Hospital. It is so far to the hospital. It is dangerous to me and to my baby.
I go to the hospital daily to try to save any life I can, even though I never got the chance to save my own family. After I lost my dear father, I lost his dream of seeing me succeed. So I decided to honor his good memory through this foundation, which aims to revitalize the healthcare system in Gaza.
I have a new baby called Suha. No comparison between this delivery and the last one. All condition is different in a big way. My day now is different completely. No water, also the deficiency of gas make the life not possible. I have a great concern about my children's life here at Gaza, as the war didn't leave any hope to life.
Gaza is my home. We just want to live like the rest of the world and to return to the way it always was.
Well, Gaza may be closed to outside journalists, but the occupied West Bank is not, allowing us to film what Palestinians there say is a different kind of Israeli oppression. Israeli settlers have been pressing ahead with claiming Palestinian land, often backed by Israeli troops. Well, over the past month, Rohit and his team have been in the West Bank, piecing together the distressing events around what the Israeli army called an anti-terrorism raid. It left a young man dead and his father searching for his body.
The peace is only ever temporary in Kabatia. Gunfire, then the rumble of military vehicles. And everyone here knows just what that sound signals. A raid is underway. What's known as an in and out, but the IDF is in for 11 hours before its soldiers leave. The following day, a look of sorrow, borne by men and by boys, by civilians and militants too. It's the funeral for two of the men killed during the violence. But what's not known is the location of the bodies of some of the other men who died. Their whereabouts adds mystery to the mourning. One of them is Fadi Hanesha. His father has only just learned that his son was killed.
This is his father, actually, yes, guys.
But here in his home, he's beginning a journey that will only become more painful.
What did you feel when you saw that video?
I feel so angry. So angry. They didn't have a right.
And here are those harrowing videos. Fadi's father has been told that his son's body might be among the corpses on a rooftop in these short clips. Israeli soldiers are seen pushing some of them to the ground. We want to solve the mystery of what happened here at the three-story block. Inside, the flats are badly damaged. Looks to us like the Israeli military used what's known as the pressure cooker method, familiar to its soldiers in the First Intifada, escalating the amount of gunfire used against a building to force suspects upwards and out.
Assalamu alaikum.
Fadi's father is here for the first time.
This bed, they were sleeping in, Fadi and his friends.
So Fadi was here, sleeping here?
Yes.
As we leave, we're approached by one of the women who lives next door. She saw the whole thing.
يوم الخميس شفت جنود فوق.
الخميس؟ طلعوا فوق أخذوا السلاح أخذوه ورجعوا أخذوا الجوالات.
You saw this with your own eyes? Yeah?
شفناهم والله شفناهم.
كله موثق
أيوة الجوالات كله صوروه.
تعرفي ابن فادي؟
مين؟
فادي.
This is Fadi.
صحيح.
أبيض. أبيض. لون هذا. بلوزته لون أبيض. مرمي ونايم.
من هون دبوه؟
ثلاثة من هون واحد
هاي عندهم ثلاث.
وما هي بعد يعني. هاي دموا بعد على الحيط وعلى الحجر هون.
عزيمة.
We then obtained this video, which gives the clearest account yet of what happened. It was filmed around 6 p.m. that night from a rooftop nearby. 3 bodies on the ground, soldiers in discussion, one carrying a blanket in, perhaps to move a corpse. Another takes a picture of one of those killed as a third soldier smiles. One hour later, around 7:10, a digger is at work. Among its debris is a body. It's been a bloody week here, but in Kabatia, dealing with death is life.
يعني شعور صعب جدا لا يمكن وصفه.
But for those killed, militant or civilian, many people here see them as simply Palestinian. We return to Kabatia to see Fadi's family 12 days since our last visit.
You're not well, I can see.
After our last visit, he suffered a stroke. Jordat, passionate and vocal just a fortnight ago, can now barely speak or move.
Cannot I do anything? Nothing.
You cannot do anything.
Nothing. I cannot do anything.
His wife now leads the fight to find their son's body.
معي حق خالتي ولا معيش والله العظيم ما عارفة كنت.
Okay. Thank you. My best wishes.
And Rohit's full report, Life and Death in the West Bank, is on ITVX now. Back in Britain, the events of the past year in the Middle East have fueled a rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, including abusive language, as we're about to hear. We've been allowed unprecedented access to security patrols in Britain run by Orthodox Jews who say anti-Semitic incidents have doubled.
3-9 receiving P1. Did you manage to gain any visual of the suspect?
We're 2,500 miles from the war. What they're dealing with here in North London is community conflict. We're out with the Shomrim, Hebrew for guards, a protection service run by Orthodox Jews. They've never allowed this kind of filming before, but the past year has left them with plenty to show.
Before October 7, we record on average 150 anti-Semitic incidents that are reported to Shomron. This year, we're at, as of today, we're at 299, so we're just almost double, and it's still climbing.
And that's the kind of level that you do notice and feel day to day, right?
Yes, we do feel it. People on the streets feel it. Even the children going to school. There have been a lot of incidents where children were bullied on the streets, walking home from schools, kicked into the road, pushed into traffic.
Everything in here is kosher.
Everything is, yeah.
Stamford Hill is home to Europe's largest population of Orthodox Jews. They are visible, therefore vulnerable. Even on the night we visit, one woman reports this abuse.
You are even Jewish, even you. Jewish, even.
Some of the incidents happen at random, others are planned, like these phone calls made 2 weeks ago to Jewish shopkeepers here.
Dirty Jewish, I'm going to slaughter the lot of you, you ugly, you dirty Jewish paedophile. You know what I'm talking about, you Jewish, you ugly, you kosher, you little tramp.
How did you feel when you got that phone call?
I was just too shocked. I was just frozen. And I didn't know, I just asked him, hello, what are you saying? What's happening here? I just felt because I'm Jewish, that's why I was targeted.
Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine!
A year of tension has made others a target too. Islamophobia has also risen, and protests for Palestine became intensely politicised.
They are hate marches.
The war has affected British people and their politics, especially during a sometimes divisive general election.
This election has been the worst election I have ever stood in.
In Dewsbury, Iqbal Mohammed is one of 5 independent MPs elected across England, largely thanks to their support for Gaza.
When you had politicians who could show compassion for one community, one race, and complete disdain and lack of compassion or empathy for another, I think that just hit people hard, saying, well, wait a minute, all humans are equal.
And in Britain, they live together, even if at times war abroad has pulled people at home apart. Paul Brand, News at 10.
Well, Emma joins us again now from Beirut. And Emma, we've been reflecting on this last year, but where you are, they're preparing for the war ahead.
Yes, much of this country is braced for what might be to come, but of course a significant part of this country is already living through a war. Down there in the south, it is gaining intensity, and here in Beirut, exactly the same. This entire past year has really seen the defeat by the terrible influence of depravity over diplomacy and decency. And we have seen it marked by death, by destruction and displacement. And there is multi-generational trauma across this region. And I think the feeling very much here in Lebanon is that there is no sense that the international community is going to have any more ability to rein in Israel's military adventurism than it has had in Gaza. There is a hope that somehow this situation will be brought to book before it gets any worse, but there is no real expectation that it will be.
Emma, thank you very much indeed for that. And I'm joined now by John here in Jerusalem. And John, you've reported on this area and lived here for so many years. I suppose the big question tonight is, where is the hope and where are the peacemakers?
Well, might you ask, Julie, and that is a crucial question, because a ceasefire in Gaza is the one thing that would probably bring this multi-front war to an end in an instant. President Joe Biden has been trying hard to bring about a ceasefire, but the leader of Hamas and the Israeli Prime Minister just haven't been flexible enough for it to happen. Personally, I think the Americans have given up for the time being. They don't seem to have any ideas. One would imagine that at this critical time, top US diplomats would be in this region trying to calm things down, only they're not. The other problem is Mr. Netanyahu. He's opposed to a ceasefire on the grounds that in the event of one, he fears hardliners in his cabinet would collapse his government. Now, for that reason, I think we are left with this worrying stalemate for the foreseeable future. It's a terrible situation, but I don't see any change on the horizon.
John, thank you very much indeed for that and for all your reporting on today and to all our correspondents across the region. And that is News at 10 tonight, marking the first anniversary of the massacre that changed the Middle East. Its execution and the reaction to it has left a livid wound on our world. When Hamas terrorists tore across Gaza's border and into Israel a year ago, they took 1,200 lives and they took 251 hostages. Families were decimated. Israel was stunned. Its government, under Benjamin Netanyahu, vowed vengeance. Its war on Hamas to seek out and destroy its fighters in the Gaza Strip has also claimed many, many civilian lives, more than 41,000 at the last count. Too many, the world says. A year on, peace in the Middle East is all but dead. The two-state solution, a Palestinian state alongside Israel, buried. International diplomacy ignored. The hostility between Israel and Iran unleashed. In this ancient city, from where the prayers of the world's great faiths go up, there has rarely been such a need for hope and peace.